it was such a different thing. We were the first rock band into Mumbai.
I dream of rain, I dream of gardens in the deserts. I'm waking pain,
Well, I think I had culture shock.
Yeah.
It's so different to where I come from. I'm from the north of England. It's very grey.
Yeah.
It's very industrial.
Right.
And Mumbai in 1980 was a very different city to what it is now.
Yeah.
There were no high rises. There was this one.
Yeah,
I stayed here. We were the guests of the jazz club of Mumbai,
Right.
which was a group of Parsi ladies, very posh Parsi ladies. And they invited us as part of the jazz festival. I'm not sure they knew what they were getting. But I remember we played in this beautiful amphitheater, open air, and it seemed like the whole of India was represented in that audience. There were thousands of people outside who couldn't get in, who were a little frustrated because they were curious. But I remember being as curious about the audience as they were about us.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody knew whether it would work or not.
Yeah.
It was such a different thing. We were the first rock band into Mumbai, but after the end of 90 minutes, it was a normal rock and roll reaction. Everybody was enthusiastic and yelling and screaming, and very exciting. And I'll never forget it. It was such a vivid memory, and I'd long to come back. So this invitation to play the Lollapalooza festival was something I said, no problem, please, I'm coming.
Yeah, and I feel like your association with Indian music has also continued since then, I'm supposing, and maybe even before that, what you've heard about Indian music. I know that you work with Anushka Shankar, Karsh Kale, all these folks. I guess what is it that draws you to working within Indian music?
I think that the culture is so rich, the history is so rich, and I'm a student of music, and so to come here and listen to raga, and trying to clap with it, very difficult. And it's a different mindset. Indian classical music is totally different to Western classical music, and there's so much to learn rhythmically. John McLaughlin is a good friend of mine, and he's another student of Indian music. Obviously, you know that. So there's always something to learn, and I'm hoping to learn something while I'm here.
Right.
So.
And in terms of even your collaborations on a larger scale with musicians across the board, across the world, I feel like you've always been open to collaborating with so many people. Just most recently, with Marshmello and Pink, for example, when they did Dreaming, right? So, yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask about what do you seek out in collaborators at this stage, if in your career?
It's a great privilege to work with other musicians, especially when they're reinterpreting one of my songs, because they will bring something to the song that I hadn't anticipated. They can also bring an audience to one of my songs that I wouldn't get. Marshmello is very successful dance, electronic dance music, and so he has an audience. Pink too has a different audience to me. So it's a win-win situation. It's great fun to do, but also commercially you're expanding your influence. You're expanding the power of the song. So I never say no. I'm always curious what people want to do.
And do you feel like there's somebody who you still wish to collaborate with right now, in that way,
I was going to have a meeting last night with A.R. Rahman, but he got stuck in an airport somewhere, so it didn't happen. We'll meet eventually, and we'll discuss a collaboration, perhaps.
Okay, that's good. I want to ask you maybe something specific to your writing and your music, basically. I guess I wanted to ask what comes sort of faster and or maybe easier to you, lyrics or music, because I feel given your background, even as an English teacher and things like that, I'm sure your lyrics have a sort of eloquence to them, but the music itself also is sometimes quite complex and elegant. So yeah, what sort of comes to you faster?
The simple answer is nothing comes easily.
Right.
No. I wish I was that kind of genius where music just flows out of me. It doesn't.
Right.
I have to work hard. I tend to write music first, with the philosophy that if you compose music well, it already has a a narrative. It's telling you a story. I hear stories when I hear music. Some people see colors.
Yeah.
I hear stories, characters, situations, and so the music writes the lyric. I'm just a conduit,
Right.
I think.
And so what's in store for the show that you have tonight at Lollapalooza?
What can you expect?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be singing mainly hits that people will recognize. But my job really is not to try and reproduce a recording at all.
Yeah.
We have much more of a jazz sensibility, and that you'll recognize the head of the song. But every night I'm searching for something that I haven't found before, I haven't discovered before. So I'm led by my curiosity, because they can change so much.
Yeah.
It can be very subtle, so that the audience would not notice it. Perhaps members of the band will notice it, but I do it for me. Just think, what would happen if I changed the bass note here, if I sang a slightly different melody, or if I changed the lyric? I have the freedom to do all of that, as long as people recognize where the starting point is. And then some songs they have no arrangement. They just have to listen to me, and I can go to a disaster or go to a triumph, but you never know.
Yeah, I guess.
I hope it's a triumph tonight. But
Fair enough. Yeah. And like I was reading up about how obviously along the years, like you've always had activism as part of your life. And I wanted to ask, like, over the years, I feel like what we've seen in more recent years, at least, is that the more and more online we are, the more and more that activism sometimes at least gets perceived as performative. I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, I mean, does it like bother you sometimes when other people perhaps have good intentions?
Well, I mean, let's take an example. I've been interested in what I can do in a positive way to help the environment for 30 years. Using my position as a platform to say, if we keep burning our forests down, we're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
I was attacked for that. I mean, they thought it was just performative. Yeah. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And frankly, after 30 years, I wish I'd been wrong. I really do. I've been completely, but I wasn't wrong. We're now realizing that the destruction of the forest in the Amazon is related directly to the changes in climate, to the change in weather. We're all suffering from it. And frankly, it's the poor people of the world who are in the front line of this, flooding, storms. But we're not immune in the West either. I live in New York City. That could be flooded as well, and London. So I think all of us need to listen to what scientists are telling us, not what politicians are telling us, because they're generally lying.
Yeah, fair enough. You mentioned New York. I was in New York sometime in September, and I went past the Belmont building, where they shot Only Murders in the building. The TV show, the Arconia, right? They call it the Arconia, and Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about, I read a bunch about what the showrunner sort of said about you being involved in the show, but I didn't read much about what your experience was like being on the show.
Well, I was acting.
Yeah.
I suppose it was a version of me.
Yeah.
It's a little bit crazy, but...
So you don't break into song whenever you want.
What's funny is they give you a script, okay, and you agree to do it. But that's not the script they use. They improvise.
Yeah.
And so you have to be on your toes. They say something to you that's not in the script. So you have to, it's fun. There's the scene in the elevator.
Yeah.
Where the dog, bites me or something. And I say, I don't like dogs. It's not true. I actually love dogs. But he said, but you have a dog. I said, I don't like him either. That was completely ad lib.
Oh, right.
It was very funny.
Right, and I know that it's something that acting, of course, is you've been doing theatrical productions and you've been on the stage that way as well. How do you switch, I guess, between
Well, I never had an ambition to be an actor. I acted in films by accident. I had the right look, and I did about 12 movies. Some good, some terrible. I prefer acting on stage. because I have more control. Because it's closer to what I do normally when I sing. And so acting on film, you have to be so patient. It's really a director's medium, and you just have to wear the right clothes and say the right lines and then do it 50 times. So my preference is to act in plays. I like that.
Right. And I know that it's something that all artists think about in terms of legacy. And I wanted to ask you about has what you sort of I know a lot of people think about like what they want to be remembered for, and I feel like it changes over time for all of us as human beings. So like, has it changed for you as from compared to when you started out to right now?
Yeah, I think up till about 10 years ago, I would have said my legacy are my songs, the songs I wrote for the police, the songs I wrote for my own career. But now I would say my legacy, the one I'm most fond of, is The Last Ship, which became a Broadway show and a touring show in Britain and Europe. And there's a very strong possibility that it may become an opera.
Wow, okay.
With a big chorus and an orchestra. So that is an exciting adventure for me. I also think it's about something very personal to me. It's about my community, where I come from, the people I was brought up with, and also about my escape from that. So if I have to sort of say what's my legacy at the moment, it's that. But you're right, it will change. I also have 6 children and 7 grandchildren, so that's a legacy as well.
Yeah, yeah. I know that you were part of the World Sacred Spirit Festival in Jodhpur, right? You were invited by the Maharaja Gajaraj Singh II. So yeah, just want to know, like, I'm sure you've been there a few times. Like,
yeah, I have. I said I've slept in Maharaja's palaces. You know, I've seen the whole thing. There was a very worthy cause about head injuries. You know, there's a lot of it in India because people don't wear
helmets.
Their crash helmets, particularly in the countryside. So I was happy to lend my voice to that cause.
All right, fair enough. And lastly, just I guess your plans, sort of like outside the performance here, like while you're in India. Are you
While I'm here,
for a few more days.
I'm going back to Rajasthan tomorrow.
Amazing.
I'm going to Jaisalmer, which is one of my favorite cities.
Okay, so you're here for a while.
I'm here for another 3 days.
Oh, amazing.
Just a